Got debt? We do. Listen up as we discuss different types of debt and strategies to pay them off. Hello, and welcome to the Wealth Minded MD podcast with your money best friends. I'm Dr. Brittany Helford.
And I'm Dr. Alicia Taylor.
And of course, we're here to help you build wealth and make good money decisions so you can create the life you desire with more control over your time. Well, Alicia, I feel like it's been a while since we've caught up. So tell us, what is going on in your life?
All right, you will be proud of me, and maybe you are already 20 steps ahead, but I am sort of delving into this world of AI assistance. And so I know you use AI for a lot of things, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever, but I have recently become aware of the fact that you can create your own AI assistant to do like customized tasks. And I have been really intrigued by this. And I've been like, oh my gosh, maybe I want to create my own customized AI assistant. And I was thinking about like, what are the different things that I would want it to do? And I've been listening to podcasts about it. And some people start simple, right? And they create an AI assistant that tells them about the weather and tells them about their daily plans. And other people create an AI assistant to help them plan meals for their kids, right? Give them different meal prep ideas based on what they may have in their fridge or what's on their grocery list. I've been thinking about potentially doing some sort of AI tool to help me with finance, not necessarily like a budgeting app, but more of a investing app, a way to rebalance my portfolio and let me know where I should deploy cash whenever I invest new things. A lot of people use a spreadsheet, but I wonder if I can get an AI tool to help me with some of those tasks based on my risk tolerance and preference and, the market and all of these things. And so I have really been thinking a lot about having a customized AI assistant. So I wondered, have you created your own AI assistant? Is this something that you are into as well?
So I haven't created my own assistant. And so I'm curious, which software are you using?
So the words "are you using" are already, I said thinking about, not actively executing. So I am not quite sure. I have heard the things about Claude and how that might be useful, but I have not started yet. This is more like definitely in the planning stages and in the thinking stages. And I'm not quite sure if it is going to cost a lot of money, if I'm going to need to pay for different software tools. Oftentimes, some of these AI tools like ChatGPT are free, but there's different versions that are not free. And usually I think when you're creating your own AI assistant, you oftentimes need to pay for some of these features.
Yeah.
And so I haven't been quite sure of which one I should start with. I am not a coder by any means. I have not created software code. My experience with code is like creating a website on Squarespace. So like very, very limited. And so I don't know. I haven't decided yet. Is there one that you recommend for those folks like me that don't have a lot of experience?
I have not experienced Claude or Copilot. I see mostly Copilot at work. I use the free version of ChatGPT, honestly. And as we're talking about AI, one of the things that I did not realize until recently is that in order to power AI, it consumes a lot of water. And so there are some environmental impacts and threats. So I'm trying to be judicious. I hope somebody just solves this problem because AI helps me in so many things in my life. Thank you, Lord. But I'm like, I also want to ensure that the way that I'm using it is responsible given the environmental impact. So all of that to say that I use the free version of ChatGPT. My husband has a paid version of ChatGPT. I think it's about $20 a month, and his is definitely more customized than mine. But because I log in and I use the same kind of prompts usually, then I get a decent output. And so with AI, I think it's like most things, trash in equals trash out. And so it really depends on the sophistication of the user. And the better you are at using it, the more information and clarity you can give to the tool, the better the output is going to be. So I haven't used it. I have asked for some meal plans. A lot of how I do it is to organize my thoughts regarding planning for the business or communicating a message to my parents of tasks that I need my mother to do. That's my unpaid assistant. Okay. So get yourself a mama who is retired and wants to help you out. I have used it to help to organize for our summer planning for the kids, right? I'm like, hey, can you give me a list of all of the summer programs in this demographic area from this date to this date, create a table that includes the location, the cost, and all of that. And that's where it's gold. And then it has the link there. And so therefore I can give that information to my mother and then she could call the places to verify that it's accurate and to really ask some of those nuanced questions so that we can schedule and arrange the program for Brooke. So that's where I found that it could be like most effective. And then also recording my own thoughts and dictations and organizing them.
Okay. So you think that for your purposes, using ChatGPT and using like a chat bot is sufficient? I just wondered if there was a point where you were like, oh, I actually need like a virtual assistant to kind of do those things. And I've heard that when you have an assistant, they can oftentimes take on more tasks. It's not like you asking a question and them giving you an answer, but it's them actually working for you in the background, so to speak. Like maybe you create a virtual assistant that can call, do some of the tasks that your mother currently is doing for you.
Mhm.
And so I wondered about that.
The only thing that I haven't actually implemented this yet, but we will be implementing it is in the laundromat, getting an AI tool to answer the phone. And that way I'm going to feed it all of the responses. Like if this person asks, hey, are you open? Yes, these are our hours, or how do I do this, or whatever. And they can even take orders through. So for a pickup and delivery, they can take orders. So that's the only tool. I would say if there's a specific task that you want, if it's meal planning all the time, or if it's something, then I would definitely do your research to see if there's an assistant who is specialized and has been kind of custom designed for that specific task, because I think that that's where you're going to get the most value. The chatbots are okay for me right now, but I haven't done as much research of what an assistant might be able to do in my personal life.
Okay. Well, if you find out, right, if you start creating and coding your own virtual assistant, let us know. I'm all about optimization and trying to make things easier, take things off of my plate. I'm trying to think about what are the tasks that take a lot of my time, or what are the things that I keep forgetting to do, and seeing if there's a way that I can deploy AI in a responsible way. I might be able to just make things a little bit easier for me at this stage of my life. So keep me up to date, girl. I'm trying to keep up with the times and
You're listening to podcasts on this topic. So what have you learned? Anything?
I get very limited knowledge, probably things you already know. I'm not as advanced as you, but I am happy that I'm learning about this stuff because I really do think that I'm going to be able to use these tools to optimize my life. So just thinking about what tools might be great for what purposes,
Mhm.
I think is probably my next step. And I might play with some of the different bots, whether it's Claude, ChatGPT, or whatever. And I want to make sure that, I'm using something that's decently accurate. So we will see. TBD.
TBD. All right. So, Alicia, this season of life is very interesting for me because I'm managing so many things. But one of the things that I have worked really hard to get rid of that now I have a little bit more of is debt. We have two properties, we have mortgages on them. We've purchased this laundromat, but took out a loan for it to help with some of the renovations. And so I thought that this would be a really great opportunity for us to talk about the different types of debt, to talk about kind of our own debt journeys, and to create and give the people audience our thoughts on like a strategy for paying the debt off. So I'm going to ask you a bit about your student loans, which I don't have. I got other types of debt, but I don't have that one. And I thought that it would be really nice to have this conversation. Finances are one thing we could talk about. Oh yeah, I'm saving for my retirement. I'm investing in my Roth IRA. But when it comes to debt, it feels like something that people sometimes feel guilty about or shameful of. It seems like it is a little bit more emotionally charged. And those conversations often don't go very deep because it's part of our financial profile that we want to kind of keep disclosed and hidden.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It's so funny. I was at dinner with my brothers last weekend. I don't know how we got on this topic. I think maybe my oldest brother is looking to buy a home. I think that's what it was. And so he was showing us some of the different homes that he was looking at for him and my sister-in-law. He made some comment about trying to look for a mortgage and trying to decide like how much he was going to put down. And my sister-in-law is a physician. And so she can get a doctor's mortgage that doesn't require you to put any money down. I don't know sort of how we got on this part of the topic, but essentially I asked him the question. I said, hey, if you got $1 million, would you use that $1 million to pay off your mortgage and to pay off, my sister-in-law's student loans, or would you invest it? And he said he would invest it. And it was like, he didn't pause. My brother works in corporate finance, is very like finance. If you think I'm finance minded, that's my oldest brother. And he said it like off the cuff. I was like, that's very interesting because I don't think that I would do that. I would probably do 50-50 because I think I would probably want to pay off part of the mortgage. I don't own a home, but if I did, I would want to pay off the mortgage. And he said, what? That doesn't make any sense. You can make more investing. And why would they can write off the mortgage interest? And my other brother was sitting next to me and he said, you know what, Alicia, I think I agree with you. I would pay off my mortgage. And my brother was like, what is wrong with you all? And I said, I bet if you asked my sister-in-law what she would do, she would tell you she'd pay off the mortgage. And he goes, well, that's why I'm not asking her. He's like, I'm not, nope, nope, nope. But it was so funny because he didn't have this aversion to debt. He's so like, well, I'm going to make more in the market and all of this. And one of the points that I told him was, financially speaking, you are correct. You can probably make more by investing the money. So I am not saying that your decision is the wrong one financially, but I do think there is something to be said about paying down debt and not having that burden. And I bet you for a lot of people, the reason they still work in their career, the reason they work as hard as they do is because they've got a big mortgage or because they've got student loans, or because they've got these debts. If they didn't have it, they could live more freely. I was like, I guarantee you, if you all weren't about to buy this mortgage, I bet you my sister-in-law would want to work part-time. I bet you that she would work less in her career, that she would have more flexibility, more happiness, just knowing that that weight is off of her shoulders. I'm illustrating this story to kind of affirm your point that debt can be very emotional. And that for a lot of us, even though we know, hey, you can make more money investing, there's something to be said about not having that load. There's something to be said about paying that off.
Yeah. And I think it really depends on where you are in your journeys. We're doing this whole Wise Steward series at church. And so I'm part of the financial stewardship committee. And I gave the talk on debt. And one of the other members on the committee is this financial advisor. And he's like, well, unlike Brittany, I know she paid her debt off aggressively, right? She paid off her student loan debt. Unlike Brittany, I went for the 30-year extended payment. I wanted to pay as little as possible for as long as possible because his interest rates were like 3 or 4%. And he's like, I can make more in the market. And that's kind of probably where your brother is thinking as well. Maybe his mortgage is like 5% interest. So he could basically make more in the market, and thinking about the longevity, long-term wealth, you're going to have more growth in that capacity. However, not all of our money decisions are driven by logic. A lot of them are driven by psychology. A lot of them are driven by our past experiences, our current experiences, how secure, unsecure we feel. When I paid off my student loan debt, I think I was in the point of being more of a financial baby. There was still a lot of maturity and growth and a lot of learning that I needed to do. And the one thing that I knew I could get rid of was that emotional baggage of paying off my student loan debt. I'm investing in a 401k, but I wasn't really choosing my investments or trying to get the best return or anything like that. These are kind of the baby steps that I'm taking. And this is one thing that I can take control over and get rid of, which I know is going to lead to overall benefit from a holistic wealth perspective. But now, like, I've done that, paid that off, cash flow.
Now you get more debt. But I think, one of the things about you, let's just clarify, right? Is like you're not getting more debt because you're like buying things you can't afford on credit. You're getting more debt is how can I accelerate my wealth building journey? And as we know, you can build wealth, you can increase your net worth by purchasing more assets that will increase in value over time. For a lot of us who are really busy, we start off really simple. Stock market investing, I'm going to invest in my work 401k, 403b, 457, solo 401k, IRA, whatever the letters and numbers that you're using. We do that. And you're doing that. But then you were like, hey, I have extra cash, thankfully, that I can deploy. And maybe instead of purchasing one asset with the cash that I have, I can purchase multiple different assets in different asset classes if I am willing to take on more debt. And so it's like, all right, for example, maybe I have $200,000 of cash that I could deploy. I could purchase a home for $200,000, or maybe I could purchase 4 different homes and put $50,000 in each home and get 4 different mortgages. Or in your case, maybe I purchased homes and then I purchase a business, aka a laundromat, and then maybe, I do this other thing. But for you, it seems like your philosophy on debt has changed. Before it was like, I got to get rid of this debt. It's a burden. It's a weight for me. And now it's like, okay, I got rid of some of my personal debt, which I don't think you regret getting rid of. But now it's like, if I take on more business debt, I might be able to build my assets and my net worth sooner. And this might allow me to reach financial independence sooner. And this might change the trajectory of my life and how long I have to work and the opportunities and the kind of lifestyle that is available to myself, my family, my kids, that sort of thing. And so not to put words in your mouth.
No, but that is exactly it. And, I think I'm shifting from, I need financial security to now I need financial growth, because we've already gotten the security. We have the emergency fund. We have all of the things. And I have matured in my financial acumen. Now I know more about taxes and I know how things work. And I have systems in place where we're not carrying credit card debt and we're able to pay those off in full and not carrying the high interest debt. And now we're at the position of leverage. Wherever you are, if you're listening to this podcast, you're like, I'm not there yet. That's okay because I wasn't either, And I think part of this, when we're discussing debt in general, is just allowing your brain to be plastic, allowing you to take actions, allowing you to learn from those actions and continue to grow. And then also allowing yourself to change. I think sometimes when we go through various life phases, we're like, well, I'm not a person who takes on debt. Maybe you weren't, but now you understand how it can be leveraged. And so you are willing to accept a little bit more risk because you've already created this solid foundation. Alicia, let's kind of go back to a little bit of the basics because honestly, I think that this is really important. Sometimes people don't actually know that there are different types of debt. And so when we're discussing debt payoff, when we're discussing debt leverage, I think it is critical for you to understand what type of debt are you taking on and how that payoff strategy might be and how this debt might make you feel. And of course, everyone is individual, so it's going to have a different impact. But the first debt I want to talk about is installment debt. Basically, that is like a mortgage, that is like student loans, that is car loans. It is a fixed amount that you are borrowing. And typically, you have a designated term, like you might pay this thing off over 60 months or 2 years or whatever it is. And usually, depending on the type, you might have a fixed interest rate. There are some times where you can have variable interest rates. So you want to really understand if it's a fixed or a variable interest rate. And so if it is more of a fixed interest rate, then you're going to have that fixed monthly payment. If there's a variable interest rate, then the monthly payments would likely change over time, but will still be consistent for a part of the time. And then you have a set payoff timeline. So I'll give you an example. So the first mortgage that we took is an adjustable rate mortgage. So it's fixed for the first 10 years. And then if we don't pay it off in 10 years, every year they will adjust the interest rate based upon the market. There is some kind of like fixed component and a variable component to that type of mortgage. Our second mortgage that we took out on our primary residence is fixed for 30 years. There are different types of loans that you can take out. And that is really important to think about and to know that information because it impacts your payoff schedule. And then the second category of debt is revolving debt. So this is your credit card debt. This is like a home equity line of credit. So you borrow up to a limit and then you make monthly payments. So your balance may change monthly. So your payments are not fixed, they're variable. And typically these are higher interest. And so there might be more fluctuation in the amount that you have to pay. And it could be a little bit more challenging to kind of plan around or budget because it kind of depends on your consumption as well.
Yeah. So a lot of us are familiar with what you said, like the installment debt. In terms of the revolving debt, I think most of us have a credit card, but the other kinds of revolving debt, like your line of credits and things like that, maybe people may be a little less familiar with. In full transparency, do you all have like a business line of credit? And did you all kind of opt for that sort of debt in order to have some more flexibility with some of the assets that you all were purchasing?
Yeah, we do. We got a loan for a total of 500,000 from the business. It doesn't renew, so we can borrow up to that amount, but once we pay it off, we don't get that availability again, kind of like a credit card, if that makes sense. So yeah, so we have a fixed amount based on what our renovation budget was for the laundromat, and then we'll have a fixed rate and then have also monthly payments that we will pay off. In that regard, when you're considering business debt or considering some type of lines of credit, you really want to just consider what does that look like as far as the monthly payment? Because if you cannot pay the monthly payment off, then of course that's going to put you in more financial strain and financial jeopardy, especially for a business. You want to make sure that your business is in good standing. So long answer to say, yes, we did. We have $500,000 for the laundromat renovation and it's available to use, but it doesn't renew. So once we start paying it off, like that's just it. So it's kind of paid off more like an installment.
All right. Well, speaking speaking of payoff, what are the different ways that you are considering paying off your debt? Because I think in the first part, we can all think of some different installment debts that we have, our revolving debts that we have, but everybody may not be able to pay all of their debt off in full each month. Like I know you and I pay our credit card bills off in full each month, but other kinds of larger debts like a mortgage or student loans or maybe a personal loan or something like that or car loan, maybe people are taking a little bit longer to pay off. And so what are the different strategies that you've been thinking about in terms of your debt payoff?
Yeah, so I think when you're thinking about your debt payoff, there are some strategies that are well known. So one is the avalanche method, which is you pay the highest interest rate debt off first, and that saves you the most money over time. The second is a snowball, where you pay the smallest balance first, and that helps you to build momentum. And then you could think about, okay, how can I refinance this debt to get lower interest? And that will decrease the amount that you owe. So, honestly, in thinking about our strategy, the first step is really understanding the types of debt you have. So, to be fully transparent, we have two mortgages. One is a rental property, one is our home, and then we have the business debt that we have. And so, when I am prioritizing my debt strategy, I'm first asking myself psychologically, which of these debts make me stay up at night? Which of these debts is bothering me the most? And trying to explore why that is and seeing if I can kind of ease and clear the psychological burden and the psychological impact of that debt. Because even if there's a debt that has a lower interest rate or a debt that has a lower amount, if you got into the debt because of some reason that still keeps you up at night, then you kind of want to probably absolve yourself of that guilt. And if you can't work through it emotionally with therapy, etc., then maybe just get rid of the trigger, which is the debt. So when I'm talking to people, I also add in that psychological factor because financial wellness, wealth is not created by having kind of these other financial stresses. And so you want to really identify what are those financial stressors. This is probably for another episode. Another type of debt that we've taken out is a loan from our 401k, not from both of ours, but one of our 401ks. And so for me, in conceptualizing the payoff strategy, that's going to be the debt that I'm prioritizing the most because I understand the financial implications of what we've done. So that is the one that's kind of given me a little bit more of psychological stress is how do we leverage the cash flow? We took out a 401k loan for the renovations, right? Because the bank is not covering everything. And so we have to put in some of our personal cash for it. And so we took out that loan and I want to have the laundromat pay that loan off first. So that is the first debt that we are getting rid of is at a higher rate, is at an 8%. Yes, we're putting the interest back, but it's the market loss that I'm most concerned about because now that money is not working for us as a family to get the returns. So this kind of speaks to like your brother, like the investment loss, right? But we needed the capital and to put into another cash flowing business and the business is going to pay it off. But for me, it's the highest interest rate and it's the one that's giving me the most stress. So that's the one that we're paying off first.
Yeah. We'll have to do a whole episode on 401k loans and when it might make sense to use one of them and then which 401k it is, whether it's taking a loan from your solo 401k or work 401k, 403b, and sort of how that works. So we'll keep that on our radar. I know that you mentioned prioritizing paying that one off. And I think that transitions well into different ways to kind of execute our debt payoff strategy. I know you mentioned you're using some cash flow to pay off the debt. What are some other methods that you're utilizing in order to maybe pay that debt off sooner?
So, whenever we're thinking about a payoff strategy, the 401k loan is the priority for me, right? But you also want to know what are the other payments that you got to make? Because you just can't say, oh, I'm going to put all the money to pay off this one debt and then miss the minimum payments for the other debts. So,
Mhm.
really understanding what are the debts? What are the type of debts? You know, are they installment? Are they revolving? What are their balances? Who are they with? When is the minimum? What is the minimum payment on them? What is the interest rates on them? When is that minimum payment due? Then getting kind of this minimum balance that you have to pay for all of your debt. Okay. And so once you kind of understand that, then you can go through and you can examine, okay, this is all of my expenses. This is my discretionary income. This is the amount of money that I want to apply to that debt to help me to accomplish this payoff goal. So if it's you want to get it paid off in 2 years, you want to get it paid off in 6 months, whatever the case may be, try to create that fixed amount that's going to go towards your debt payoff and then budget that in. And so once you can have that idea, then you can create a strategy of this is the priority now. So I'm going to pay the minimum balance on everything else and I'm going to provide or add the extra funds to that priority debt. And then once that priority debt is gone, then you can reconsider, okay, are these other debts a priority? Or I'm like, oh, I'm taking out more debt because I'm buying another business or I want to buy another home or whatever the case may be and kind of reappraise. So I think that that's the first step is just kind of really understanding what does your debt profile look like? How much of your income do you actually want to apply to that debt payoff and how quickly do you want to pay that debt off? And so once you do that, then you want to kind of remove yourself from the equation because life gets busy. You want to set everything else up that's supposed to be on a minimum payment on automatic. So you want to automate all your minimum payments. And then I would say also automate that extra payment towards the priority debt. So that way you don't have to think about it because Alicia, you said this before, like you're like, oh, I'm going to spend this extra money to help me achieve my goals. And then you gone out to brunch a couple of times and found a trip to Japan. And you're like, wait, where's the extra money, right? And so you want to automate that. And it might be that you have a separate account for your debt payoff so that you know exactly that this amount of money is going to be funded from my employer to this account for my debt payoff. And all of the automatic payments have been implemented from that account. And so you know that the money is in the bank. You have your payoff schedule. You've even automated that extra payment to ensure ease because you have a strategy, because you have a plan. You already know, oh, that debt is going to be gone in 2 years. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to feel guilty about it because now you've been very thoughtful about how you're using that debt.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of automating things because I think it takes the guesswork out of it and it prevents you from maybe utilizing that money for other things. And so I not only automate it, but I have those automations come out real quick. And back for my credit card, a lot of people automate and they pay their credit card statements off whenever the statement becomes due. And that's great. But for some of my charge cards, like my American Express cards, I actually pay them off as I make the transaction. So look, I need that money to leave my account because if it's still in there, I'm going to be thinking, oh, I have more money than I actually do. So I don't even wait till the end of the month, especially if it's a big cost. I'm like, oh, no, no, no. I need to get that out of my bank account because you know me, I'll book the trip quick. I got to get that money out of there. So I think the automations are helpful. I think you have charge cards and things like that. Maybe paying off some of your revolving debt as you get the money could be helpful. You mentioned putting extra payments in there, whether it's an extra mortgage payment. I know a lot of people who actually pay their mortgage twice a month. So when they get paid, they pay half of the mortgage. And of course, if you get paid every 2 weeks, you're going to have a total of 26 paychecks out of the year, not 24. And so they're able to make a full extra monthly mortgage payment each year, which then allows them to accelerate how quickly they pay off that loan. I know other folks who get bonuses at their job. If you're a physician, maybe you get a bonus every quarter or every 6 months or something along that line. I know some people who get a big tax refund. That's usually not something I'm getting, but if it's some people, they do get a tax refund. They can utilize that to pay off some debt. And so I think some of these things could be helpful. One of the things that I think you had mentioned offline was not add new debt. I know some people maybe they pay off their credit cards, but then you're constantly accumulating more debt. And I think we have to be strategic about what we're doing. As we mentioned earlier, like in your case, you did take on more debt, but you took on more debt to specifically purchase an asset that will be cash flowing and will add to your net worth versus somebody else who maybe is like, oh, I'm going to take out a car loan or I'm going to buy some consumption items. So I think we have to be diligent about making sure we're not adding new debt. And if we are adding new debt, what is that new debt for? Is it for the purchase of an asset or is it for the purpose of some other thing?
Yeah, yeah. Alicia, I think that that's a critical point. And unfortunately, physicians, we've delayed our gratification for so long that you see kind of this lifestyle creep that occurs. And then we find ourselves in these predicaments. So it is really important that you set a plan, you stick with your plan, and that you don't add additional problems or additional layers or just transfer the debt. I've seen some people who are, they refinance on like using a balance transfer from one credit card to the next, but then they just rack up the debt again on the transfer on their credit cards because they're thinking, oh, I just transferred this and now it's at a 0%. So, I got additional room. No, you don't. You still need to create a strategy, stick with the strategy, and ensure that the strategy works means that you're not adding on additional expenses that now you can't afford.
Yeah.
So that is a critical point, and thank you for bringing that up. And, the other thing to think about is like some of the tax considerations. So you talked about this with your brother. He's like, look, I get a mortgage interest deduction. Why am I paying this thing off so rapidly? agree. I think that there is some benefits to carrying debt a little bit longer and being strategic about the use. Now, if paying off your home is the thing that's keeping you up at night, then yeah, pay that thing off and forget about the mortgage interest deduction. But if it's not that burdensome and it's at a low interest rate, let's contribute to some other vehicles that could grow our wealth faster, because the mortgage interest deduction is very helpful for us. You also have to remember that is up to $750,000. So depending on where you live, the cost of your home, like us, that mortgage deduction may not be as sweet as it could be if they gave you the full benefit, but still understanding that is something. And honestly, Alicia, we're not paying off our mortgage rapidly. One of them is at 3.9%. It's like, all right, I'm just going to put more money into the stock market or put more money into buying other systems that can generate cash flow for us. But again, I think it really just depends on where you are and your financial savviness, and also psychologically, what is that debt doing to you and for you?
Does it concern you? I know that you are purchasing assets and some of them are purchased with debt or leverage or whatever. Does it concern you? Did it take a while for you to kind of shift your mindset from, I need to make sure I don't have debt, to I'm okay with debt and I'm okay with carrying this debt, maybe some of the lower interest rate debt for longer periods? Like, did it take a while for your mind to shift, or was that kind of automatic for you?
Definitely not automatic. It took some time. And I think the only reason that I got to the point of like, oh, we could actually leverage this debt is because I paid off one. Like once I was able to pay off all of my student loan debt, it gave me so much confidence. Now I've done this before. I could do this again. And so I say that the debt is never a problem. The only problem is the debt that you didn't have a plan for. Every debt move, we are very strategic. We're not piling on like one after the next after the next. We're giving ourselves some space to be able to create systems to understand how to manage this debt and to ensure that we can before we take on any more. And honestly, I think at this point, the only other debt plan that I have is for next year. We're going to buy a vehicle for the laundromat, and we'll probably buy that using some debt. And then I'll buy a new car, but I'm going to buy that in cash. So I think after we purchase the new laundromat, pick up a delivery vehicle, we'll probably pause on that for a bit of time to kind of recalibrate, make sure everything is going well, make sure that our goals are still aligned, and then we'll see where it takes us. And so you don't want to be over leveraged. I'm not trying to carry this debt for a long time, but I also understand that it is helping me to achieve a goal. And my goal is to retire in the next 10 years. So you pick it up, you leverage it, you pay it off, and then you keep it moving.
I got it. I got it. Does this make you keep a bigger emergency fund just out of curiosity?
No. So we have the emergency funds that are funded to 6 months, and then that's it. We have access to capital. We also have some taxable brokerage accounts, right? So if I needed some liquid cash, then we could pull from that. And the reason why is because I don't want my money to just be sitting. I want the money to be active and growing for us. So we want to have that. We have this cushion, but we haven't increased our cushion.
Okay. 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 TBD. All right. This got to be continued in the future. I would love to hear more about your 401k sort of mindset and when it makes sense and that sort of thing. So, Brittany, we will count on you to bring that to us in the near future. But for now, what is something that you are doing for fun?
I am getting a facial. In fact, after we record this episode, I'm going to go work out because, sometimes after they clean your pores, they put all the stuff you can't sweat. So I'm going to go work out. And I'm going to lay on that table and get a facial. So this is something I think I might actually purchase, like the package where you purchase like 6 and get a little bit of a discount, because it's something that I want to make sure that I keep my skin nice and healthy and rejuvenated, especially as your homegirl is turning 40 this year. So it's upon me.
So funny. So this is a popular one for you because you told us before you were getting a facial, you're like, girl, I need another one. We know this is one of your sources of joy and self-care. So I love that for you. For me, I'm buying something for a coworker. One of my coworkers is pregnant and we're actually throwing her baby shower. It's today. So I got to get off this recording and go to the baby shower. But I bought her a really nice gift. And then as a group, we contributed to the cost of her doula. And so that's going to be fun. Throwing a big party for her, got some food and all of that stuff. So even though the money is not for me, it's for her, she's a colleague that I really like working with and is well respected. And so I'm happy that we as an office are able to do something really nice for her.
Yay. I know this is one of your are great sources of joy. So I'm happy that you can give in that way. All right, people. So hopefully you've benefited from this episode of me just kind of laying it all out there and being very transparent. Remember to leave us a review, give this podcast a thumbs up, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Hello, everybody. It's me, Brooke. I'm recording a little disclaimer for my mommy, Dr. Brittany Halford, and her friend, Dr. Lisa Taylor. Just so you know, they're not financial advisors, tax professionals, lawyers, or financial planners. Everything you hear is for education and entertainment. It's not strict financial advice, you know. So use your best judgment, chat with a tax professional, and all those other people that you need to talk to. Thanks for tuning in today. Keep cruising on your journey to wealth and wellness. Bye-bye.